Hi, everyone. My name is Laura Saunders. I'm one of the regional program managers with CALIA. At the last conference, we took a few moments to introduce our new best practices and the what we're calling now continued compliance. Continued compliance is really something that we've always done, but it's becoming more formalized now, and we have a new best practices. And I have some instruction today that I wanted to go over with everyone. So I'm going to share my screen, and I've got a PowerPoint that will be included attached to this conference platform, and you'll be able to download it should you want to see it and take a look at it later. It includes some of the instructions that I'm going to go over today, as well as some screenshots. So hopefully it'll clarify any questions that you may have. All right, so with this continued compliance, the intent, as I mentioned, of accreditation, it's to really view it with no beginning or end, but for it to promote consistent accreditation maintenance and just to be continuous. We really want to start to look at as the web-based assessment and the site-based assessments just as a point in time and not a deadline. So really, again, we hope that everyone was always self-assessing and that this new model or philosophy, whatever we're calling it here, of continued compliance is not really anything new, but now we are going to actually start to see it in our electronic assessments. If you are receiving your award at this March 2021 conference, then you are expected to follow these new best updated practices. What those best practices define is the copying of all of your attachments, specifically the written directives as well as the proofs of compliance now into your next assessment. So if you received your award prior to 2021, we're allowing for some transition. You do not have to follow the updated best practices, but you certainly can. If you are required to follow these updated best practices, but you did start your next assessment and did not copy all of your proofs over, you can still go to that archived assessment and copy those proofs of compliance over. If you ever need any assistance with that, please reach out to Power DMS support. Or if you have any questions related to if this applies to you now or after your next site-based assessment, great time to reach out to your regional program manager and just check with them and make sure that you are comfortable with if you have to do it now or if you can wait. So to implement this continued compliance model, we have updated our best practices, and you can access it from a couple of different locations, but the goal is always providing 4 years of documentation of compliance or your proofs for your reaccreditation. Again, I have a few slides later on mentioning this, but just so you don't worry, if you just ended your initial accreditation process, we realize that you may not have 4 years of proofs of compliance built up yet. So what we ask you to do is build up to those 4 years. Then when you would add that 5th year or additional year, then you would delete the oldest year. The best practices document that I've been referring to can be found on 2 different locations. It's located on the CALIA website under the tools and tutorials, as well as in the Power DMS Success community. So if you're in the CALIA website, you would want to go to the menu in the upper right-hand corner, then look under the section titled Education, and you'll see Tools and Tutorials. You'll see the best practice document linked to there. If you're inside your Power DMS site, you can hover over Help, select from the drop-down Success Community, and search for CALIA Best Practices, something like that, and you'll be able to locate it there as well. Just going through a couple of highlights there. Once you find that updated best practices, again, there's some screenshots, there's instructions, there's recommendations for labeling your documentation, there's recommendations for labeling your assessment, but what is most important is the section that guides you on how to create that next site-based assessment. And I'm going to go over that right now or here in a few moments with these slides as well. But the updated best practices does provide those steps to begin the next assessment, but it also includes some links to resources to assist accreditation managers with each step. But we're going to recap some of those steps here, and I also wanted to provide some suggestions in the form of some tips. After the final report is approved in CIMRS, that is when we suggest or recommend that you're okay to create that next assessment. Regional program managers will let accreditation managers know when the report is approved and available to the agency CEO. The CEO also receives an email from CIMRS, but as a follow-up reminder, most of us, all program managers, we will also email the accreditation manager so that then you know that you can go to your CEO and ask for a copy of that report. Because as a reminder, final reports, whether it's web-based and then specifically site-based assessment reports, they are only available to CEOs with their specific CIMRS login. Your CEO will need to download that report from the results tab and then share it with others in the agency or as they determine. So once you receive notice that that final report is ready, you're going to follow the steps from the best practices, create your next assessment, copy all of your written directives and proofs or all of the attachments, and then when adding the next year, you'll simply delete the oldest year, always maintaining 4 years. So again, you'll have to build up that 4 years of compliance. Once that's there, you'll add that 5th year, drop off the oldest year, always maintaining the 4 years. Couple tips here. I like to personally recommend when getting ready for your next assessment that you bookmark the assessment that recently ended prior to archiving it. And to bookmark, you can bookmark almost anything in your Power DMS site, but to bookmark your assessment, you're going to do that by hovering over the title of your assessment in the blue table of contents on the left. When you hover over the title of the assessment, you should then see what I'll refer to as a 3-dot menu. When you hover over that 3-dot menu, you will then see a drop-down and you can click on Bookmark. There's the 3-dot menu and you'll select the bookmark it. I like to recommend that you bookmark before archiving it. Keep in mind that only users with audit permissions to an assessment are going to be able to see something that's archived to include your archived assessment. You cannot edit permissions on an archived assessment, so if you wanted to make any of those changes, you would need to do that prior to archiving. Be cautious of who you provide those advanced permissions to. Anyone within your organization who has audit permissions to that assessment are going to see all attachments in that assessment. So if you've gone through the work to set up specific permissions by chapter or standard so that only certain positions or people only see the standards that they're assigned to, you may not want to provide audit permissions to the assessment to them. But once the assessment is bookmarked, you will be able to quickly and easily find that archived assessment from the bookmark icon, which is located immediately under the home icon in the upper left-hand corner of your Power DMS. So now, per the best practices, the first step in getting started with the new electronic assessment in Power DMS is to archive the previous assessment. With the CALIA Power DMS agreement, agencies are only provided one assessment license per process, which just means that you can only have one active assessment at a time. So to archive your assessment, you're going to select on the assessment title, then you can click the Manage button and then click the Archive button from there. That archives it. After that previous assessment is archived, you are ready to create your next assessment. There are a couple of methods that you can use to create an assessment. One method to use is to hover over the New tab on your top toolbar. If you hover over New, from that drop-down menu, you will then select Assessment. If for some reason you're not able to do this, if you don't see the New tab, or if you see the New tab and you don't see an assessment in that drop-down, you may want to reach out to Power DMS support so they can assist you with permissions. You will probably also have to connect with one of the Power DMS master administrators for your agency in order to adjust your permissions. Next, you will select the appropriate standards manual from the drop-down. In that field, you'll see it, and then complete the required fields. The top 3 fields can be edited later. I recommend also including your role of accreditation manager in your role field there. So you'll create the next assessment, select New on the top toolbar, select your standards manual, Law Enforcement Communications Training Academy, Campus Security, whichever process you're participating in, and then you'll fill out those top 3 fields: assessment name, your start date, your due date, and then the version is always going to default to the most current version. There's seldom ever a time that you would want to create an assessment on a previous version, so I recommend using that most current version. And then I recommend adding yourself to the role of accreditation manager in that drop-down. If you have any questions, refer to the best practice guide, reach out to Power DMS, but I also recommend that you view the Power DMS sessions, and they will speak to creating an assessment and how to fill out these fields as well. After that new assessment is created, you will want to navigate to your archived assessment. And there's a couple of different ways to do that. One of the ways is you can use the bookmark if you had already bookmarked it. Another way is to use the advanced search. And then there's a third way that you can link from your new or open assessment. And I'm going to show you each of these methods. If you bookmarked your assessment, you can use that bookmark icon just below the home icon in the upper left-hand corner. You'll click on that bookmark icon and you can see all of the items that you've bookmarked within your Power DMS site. You just click on the assessment title and that will take you to that archived assessment. In this screenshot here, I know that this is the archived assessment because I can see that little red filing cabinet. Another way to find archived assessments, especially if you've not added them to your bookmark, is the advanced search. You will see the advanced search. It's immediately under the Find Anything field in the upper left-hand corner. So select on that advanced search. Once you're there, under the search type, there's a drop-down. You can select assessments from that drop-down, and from there you'll see all of your assessments, or you can narrow it down by including just archived if you'd like. Another way, and honestly probably this is the way that a lot of folks navigate to their archived assessment, is just from the open assessment. So once you've created that next assessment, go to it. Again, this is going to be depending on a person's permissions because they'll have to at least have audit permissions, but as the accreditation manager, if you created the assessment, you'll be able to do this. Across the top, how you've titled that assessment, just to the immediate right of that title is what I would maybe refer to as a little down arrow. If you click on that little tiny down arrow, it looks like an inverted triangle there. If you click on that down arrow, it will then drop down where you can see all of the assessments that were ever created on that manual. And then you can toggle or click on that archived assessment and you can get to it that way. Another just tip and trick here is duplicating your tabs. This can be browser dependent. So not everyone might not be able to do this, but just so you know, you can be in multiple locations in your Power DMS site just by duplicating your tab. You can do it as many times as you like. You could have your archived assessment and your current assessment both open and viewing at the same time, which is especially nice if you have dual monitors. You can drag the old to one monitor, the new on one monitor, and be looking at them the same time. To duplicate your tab, what you would want to do is hover over the tab that is titled Assessment, where you have your Power DMS open. Right-click that tab, and from the drop-down, see if you have the option to duplicate. If you do not see that option, that's something that you might want to reach out to your internal IT folks. They might be able to help you with an add-on. Again, a lot of times I find that it's browser dependent. Some browsers support that function and some not as much. It's not a Power DMS function though, so that would be an IT question. All right, now, so once you've created that new assessment, you're going to navigate back to the archived assessment in one of those ways. And we're now ready to copy our attachments from the archived assessment to the new assessment. Again, so you're going to do this by going to the archived assessment, selecting on the attachments tab, and utilizing the copy function. You can narrow down the attachments that you copy over if you like, but if in doubt, copy all of the attachments into your new assessment. Once they're copied over, anything that you don't want there, you will be able to delete because they will be in your role of accreditation manager. I'm going to show you a screenshot and kind of talk through those steps. Again, from the archived assessment, across the blue top toolbar, you're going to click on the Attachments tab. You can, if you like, only if you want to, filter your attachments. For instance, if you just want to copy over the attachments that are in the role of Accreditation Manager, I can use the drop-down that reads Added by Role, Accreditation Manager, and Filter. But if you are in doubt, or if you've used multiple roles that would be inclusive of, say, team, auxiliary, and accreditation manager, if you're unsure, you can just copy everything over. You do not have to use the filters. Again, if you have any questions, let one of the program managers know, or reach out to Power DMS support, and they can assist you with some of those functions. Over to the right, though, you can see the total number of attachments, the total number in that assessment. In my example here, if you can see it, it reads 444 over to the very right. I've got it circled above that little red flag. In your assessment, though, you're going to probably have well over 1,000 or several thousand in there. By default, Power DMS defaults to a page size of 50. I recommend that you modify this page size. Personally, I have best luck with 200. You may want to try something else. If you don't have luck with 200, you might want to, test with more than 200, or I know some folks use 100. Change that page size though, and again, I'm recommending 200 by in the middle there where you see the change button. Just to the left of that, it'll read 50. Type in 200 in place of the 50, and then click change. So now this page is going to display 200 attachments. On the very left-hand side, you're going to click that very top checkbox that is selecting all 200 attachments on that page. Just above that, there is a Select Action button. Click on that Select Action button from the drop-down. Click on Copy Selected Attachments. Once you do that, you're going to, the next step is going to look a little bit like this. Once you've copied the selected attachments, you will see this box, and you'll be asked to select the role that you want to copy into from that drop-down box. Click the copy button at the bottom of this list. If all 200 attachments do not copy, they will be listed at the bottom of the page. You're going to then move to the next page. I'm going to go back just a moment. So you're under near the select action. I can see that there's several pages here. So once I've copied everything over, I select done. I'm going to then move to page 2, repeat this process. As long as everything copies, it keeps going until you've copied everything. Again, I mentioned if something doesn't copy, it's going to display at the bottom of your page. So here's an example of where all attachments did not copy. They'll be listed. There are a few reasons why an attachment might not copy over, but most likely in the newer version of the manual that you are now in, that a standard was deleted. So that's the most typical reason that something might not copy. If for some reason you need that attachment, you still will be able to navigate to your archived assessment. You could open it, download it, save it locally, and then reattach if you needed it. So they're not lost, which is one of the main reasons why we opted for not just keeping one single assessment opened forever. We don't want folks to lose attachments. We want you to be able to go back and see and have that previous assessment, just as it was reviewed, preserved for that previous 4 years. In the updated best practices document, we are now recommending that you name your attachments by calendar year or the year that they occur in. And just based on conversations with different accreditation managers, I know that there are different naming conventions and some people just opt not to do this. So if you've been using an alternate naming convention and you want to stay with it, you can still do that. We just ask for consistency. Also, if you've used an alternate naming convention in the past and now you do want to transition to the calendar years or to something else that you've determined, you do not have to rename all of the previous attachments. We ask that you just transition naturally through attrition and change the naming convention over time. So here's an example of a standard that has 2 naming styles and illustrates transitioning over the 4 years, how to perhaps convert to calendar year when in the past I used year 1, 2, 3. Now that I've gone through each page and that all attachments, written directives, and proofs are copied into my new assessment, continue documenting compliance. When you add a year, you're going to delete the oldest year, but only after you've built up that 4 years of documentation. The most important things to remember is maintaining the 4 years of compliance for review. If this is your first reaccreditation and you've not yet have 4 years of compliance documentation, build up to that 4 years of history before removing any of the previous attachments. So again, the goal is to have this 4-year look back and always have 4 years of compliance for review. You want to remain in compliance with Appendix G. So check Appendix G, make sure you know the quantity of proofs that you need to have for each standard. And then also remain in compliance with all applicable time-sensitive standards, most important things. The Power DMS electronic assessment has some other tools and features that you may use to manage your assessment or that you may now want to use now that you're starting a new assessment. For instance, if you utilize recurring tasks, if you have in the past, you can copy those tasks into your next assessment. You will have to replicate any assignments that you have used in your previous assessment. Currently, there is not a way to copy those over. You can bulk set statuses as you determine. Some like to work from their inbox and some like to use tasks or other methods to know when a standard might need to be addressed. But you can bulk set statuses for standards as you determine, such as in progress, not applicable, not in compliance, 20%. If you're an agency who is in the, say, Tier 1, LE1, or a CS1 agency, you can bulk set the non-LE1 or non-CS1 standards to not applicable, and there is a resource on how to do that. This allows you to utilize your inbox to manage your assessment. Also, just keep in mind, as a reminder, you can bulk set entire chapters to not applicable. So if you have an entire chapter that's not applicable to you, you can in bulk set that status to not applicable. You do not have to do it one at a time. Throughout this PowerPoint presentation, again, you should have the availability to download it. There are resources linked. But again, I also recommend that you view the Power DMS sessions during the conference to become familiar with how to use the electronic assessment tool. They will include a lot of the things that we talked about, how to bulk set statuses, how to copy your things over. Much of that is going to be in the session 2 and 3, but also the creating of your assessment is in Power DMS session 1. This image reflects proofing for both initial accreditation as well as a re-accreditation process. Always keeping in mind that proofing for compliance is continuous. And while the site-based assessment and award in the past represented a start and a stop date, we really want to view those events only as a point in time and never stop self-assessing. If you have questions, we ask that you reach out to your regional program manager with process questions and that you reach out to Power DMS support with assistance with the assessment tool. We truly believe that this process will institutionalize the documentation of the collection of proofs to standards and provide the opportunity for agencies to demonstrate ongoing compliance. Again, always providing that look back of 4 years as well as increasing the integrity of the review process. Let us know if you have any questions. We're happy to help.